Coolangatta stands at the doorway to Queensland and has welcomed visitors to the Sunshine State since the beginning of the last century. In fact, it was a popular holiday destination when Surfers Paradise was just a sandspit covered with bracken and banksias. Today it marks the southern end of the Gold Coast city and still shows the way for holidaymakers to relax and have fun in the sun. Captain Cook and his crew on the Endeavour were the first recorded Europeans to see the future site of Coolangatta back in May 1770. He named Point Danger, along with Mount Warning, the peaked mountain just to the west, to warn mariners of the dangerous reefs just off the coast. In the 1820s, the cedar cutters arrived in the area. Ships loading these logs had to negotiate the dangerous Tweed River Bar. Many met a watery grave when they ran aground on sandbanks and rocky headlands. One was the schooner Coolangatta, who broke her moorings during a wild storm in August 1846 and was blown ashore. Today, a monument stands near that spot just north of Cura Beach. What was left of the wreck was exposed again in heavy cyclonic weather in the 1970s. The site for the township at Point Danger was first surveyed in 1883. The surveyor considered that name unattractive and the town was named Coolangatta after the wreck. In the next year, the first hotel, the Commercial, was built in the little town. Burnt down and rebuilt as the Federal, it later became known as the Queensland. Modern apartments have replaced this historical building only in the last few years. Back in those early days, the only way to reach Coolangatta from Brisbane was by Cobb and Co coach through the tiny settlement at Southport, across the Nerang River on Myers Ferry, then south along the surf beaches in a lighter coach. They had to work the low tides and avoid quicksands at the mouth of Currumbin Creek before arriving at the border after a full day's run. Then in 1903, a train line from Brisbane to Coolangatta was completed so that farmers could get their products to the markets both in Brisbane and the Tweed. Suddenly, Brisbane holidaymakers found Coolangatta and its beautiful beaches. Patrick Fagan, you might say, was the first tourist promoter on the Gold Coast. In 1904, he built the first guest house in Coolangatta, on the side of a hill at the southern end of the beach, then known as Danger Bay. He named it Greenmount, from which the beach then took its name. He and his wife ran the guest house well, and to impress their guests, picked them up at the station in Pat's automobile, the very first motorcar in Coolangatta. At holiday times, Coolangatta became a tent city, campers flocking there by train, the only practical way to get there. In those days, the surf was considered too dangerous. Only a few hardy men occasionally braved the waves. Young ladies used the beach to parade the latest in fashions. In 1910, the Shire Council passed a bylaw allowing mixed bathing, but only in neck-to-knee costumes. The guest houses provided bathing boxes on Greenmount Beach, but these were considered unsightly and were eventually banned. Inevitably, some swimmers got into difficulties, which led to the formation of the first lifesaving club to be formed in Queensland. This footbridge allowed people to cross the double fences at the New South Wales border, but during the flu epidemic of 1919, any contact across the border was banned, causing utter chaos. The bank teller even had to use a string to slide a money tin across the bridge to the customer on the other side. This type of behaviour went on for almost 6 months until the epidemic waned. About this time, the motorcar became the new means of transport, but with 3 ferries to cross and the old Jubilee Bridge to negotiate, it was still a challenge to reach Coolangatta. With more comfortable accommodation being built, families began to take a motoring holiday, or even a day trip to the beach. Coolangatta slowly began to come alive. But it was the Second World War that really put the whole Gold Coast area on the map. The huge influx of American servicemen on R&R leave overwhelmed Coolangatta. Hotels and guest houses were taken over by the Americans solely for their use. You could say that they were our first overseas visitors, telling us our beaches were among the best in the world. Today, strolling along the Walk of Remembrance on Point Danger, you can see on the fence 41 brass plaques. Each one tells of a ship that was sunk by enemy fire around Australia's coastline during the Second World War. A chilling reminder just how close the enemy was and how little was told at the time. Life changed after the war. The holiday capital came of age. Young people, tired of the constraints of a war, flocked to Coolangatta for a carefree holiday. Guest houses like St Leonard's, Greenmount, Beach House and Stella Maris were the place to be, and with air travel becoming more popular, Coolangatta Airport for the first time welcomed tourists from all over Australia. Theatres were full every night. Dance halls were bouncing to the music of the 50s, while on the beaches, crowds from the guest houses joined in the beach entertainment and the new craze, the hokey pokey.
This is Doug Roughton at Greenmount Beach, Coolangatta. All right, gang, it's hokey pokey time. Are you ready? Beat it out.
During the 1960s, boulder walls were constructed seaward of the natural mouth of the Tweed River, almost stopping the northerly drift of sand along the Gold Coast beaches. Within a few short years, the popular beaches of Rainbow Bay, Greenmount and Kura were so starved of sand that they almost disappeared. Cyclonic weather tore away the foreshore and completely wrecked the Kura Pavilion. In a double blow to Coolangatta, Surfers Paradise's sophistication and bright lights began to attract the holiday crowds looking for a change. Eventually, to save the beaches, and at a cost of millions of dollars, huge dredges were brought from overseas to pump the sand onto these eroded beaches. It is only in the last few years that a permanent sand bypass system has been commissioned at the Tweed River mouth, and once again the beaches have returned wider than in living memory. Coolangatta's beach formation produces some of the best waves for surfboard riding on the coast. World-renowned surfers ride the swells from off the rocky headlands at Snapper Rocks north to Kura Point. Coolangatta today shows a whole new image. Modern resorts and multi-storey apartments now replace the old guest houses. The popular milk bars of the 50s have given way to coffee shops, while relaxed casual dining offers stunning views of the sea. The original McDonald's Hotel was rebuilt and became the Hotel Grand. Once a showpiece on Marine Parade, it has now given way to the luxurious Calypso Resort. The famous catch cry of Bill Stafford's once well-known clothing shop is now only a memory. Coined after the original Coolangatta Hotel burnt down and 2 patrons were left without a stitch of clothing, the rebuilt Coolangatta Hotel has now gone too, a modern building replacing it. Gone too are the huge halls of mullet that attracted the crowds onto Greenmount Beach. Now it's the weekend markets along Marine Parade that bring the crowds looking for a bargain. Winter Sun Festival is held during the first week of June each year. Under the blue skies of a Queensland winter, it celebrates those heady days of the 50s and 60s. Classic cars, with music and dancing, for all to enjoy, and for some to remember. While Coolangatta has had an interesting past, its popularity will never wane, with its natural beauty and relaxed lifestyle that is impossible to resist.
It's hot and blues and butters, Coolangatta, Coolangatta for me and you, Coolangatta for me.
My name's Bill Stafford. And as a local historian, it's been my pleasure to be associated with the making of this video and to have provided many of the photographs and local history of the early days of Coolangatta.
We're talking about the hokey pokey and the ivory rag, aren't we?
We are.
And it's a lot of fun, and we've got all the oldies here today. All the oldies from the 40s and the 50s. And it's nice to be involved in your film.